Hey everyone, welcome to the first episode of Season 4 of the RESGEN Giving Life Podcast. My name is Tom Henderson, the founder of RESGEN, and we have got a great season in store for you. A season filled with stories and conversations about life in Christ, everyday discipleship, and ways that we as men can give life to others. Before we get rolling into today's episode, I have a favor to ask. When you are done listening, would you take just 30 seconds to rate and or review the podcast? Not only would that be a tremendous gift to me, but it is also a really easy way for you to help us continue to grow both our audience and our impact as we launch into this brand new season of the podcast. I really appreciate you doing that for us. All right, my conversation today is with a friend of mine named Nathan Unruh. Dr. Unruh is a follower of Jesus, a husband, a father, a visionary leader, and a successful entrepreneur who is dedicated to enhancing people's lives. As a respected author, coach, speaker, and consultant, Nathan is known for both his unique perspective and his innovative approach to business. On today's show, Nathan and I have a lively discussion about several topics, including life-giving leadership, successful entrepreneurship, and value-based mentorship. We also talk about how his faith impacts the way that he leads and cares for people, what it means to live a life of affluence, and some steps we can all take in our quest to be men of growth in every area of our life. I hope you're ready, because this first episode of Season 4 is definitely a loaded one. Here's my conversation with Dr. Nathan Unruh. Nathan, brother, man, it's good to have you here.
I'm excited to be here, man. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, and this is episode 1 of Season 4. I mean, you are kicking this season off.
Uh-oh. Pressure's on, man.
Yeah, it's really good. I'm thankful that we get to spend this time together. You and I have had many conversations just one-on-one, and so now we're just allowing other people to come and be a part of that conversation. So thanks for your willingness to do this.
Yeah.
To get us started, though, I want you to give just an introduction of who you are, because, I mean, some people are going to know you. I mean, you especially if their listeners are here in Sioux Falls. You've been in Sioux Falls a long time, so they probably know you a little bit, but there's always people that this is going to be an introduction. So I'd love just to introduce yourself, tell about your family, and just kind of a little bit about your story and what's gotten you to this point in your life.
Awesome. Well, I'm married, going on 27 years.
Yeah.
To my bride, Sarah. Met her here in Sioux Falls. We have 3 children. My oldest, Gabrielle, just graduated law school. She's going to be getting married here real soon.
Oh, man.
Lincoln, he is in Scottsdale, Arizona, working for me in one of our companies. And then my youngest, Lexi, is going to school at Creighton University and playing basketball there.
Okay.
And then our 4th child, and I got to mention, so when my kids listen to this, they'll laugh, because my 4th one, they say, is my favorite, and that's my dog, Coda, which is a Bernedoodle. So, yeah, that's a little bit about my family. I cut my teeth in the chiropractic industry.
Yeah.
So I've been a chiropractor for about 24 years and have owned and operated 6 different offices during that time. And during that time, we were trying to solve a problem in my chiropractic office of billing troubles. And we were trying to centralize our billing. And when we solved that problem, we said, we should offer this to other doctors. So that sprung out another business called Sidecar.
Yeah.
Since then, that business has been around for about 10 years, and now we offer all different business solutions for doctors all around the world. And so that keeps me busy, that company. And then in addition to, we have another company called 5-4.
Yep.
And 5-4 is a business that our whole vision is to battle for better business. And so depending on what the business owner's battle is, whether it's trying to develop a wonderful world-class team experience, world-class leaders, world-class customer experience, we provide strategy and structure and help them execute those items.
Mm-hmm.
So those are the main things that I'm doing today. So we have just then another separate company that's called Quiver. That's just a sales and marketing company that mostly serves the current companies.
Yeah.
So that's like in the 30-second.
Yeah, dude. I mean, and there's no shortage of things that you've got your hands in. And so, I mean, even when we scheduled this, knowing that this is going to be episode 1 of Season 4, it's going to launch in September. I was like, we just got to do something that's conducive with Nathan's schedule, because your schedule is always so full. So, because you got a lot of great stuff going on. And you mentioned just development of leaders, and that's where I really want to kind of start with you, because you and I have had so many conversations about leadership. I know that's something that you're just very, very passionate about, is helping helping people become better leaders, really helping them just become better people, And so I want to start just in that whole leadership realm. I know it's such a broad topic, but I'm very passionate about it as well, specifically life-giving leadership, leaders who give life while they're leading. And so I'd love for you to just kind of unpack a little bit about just the attributes that you feel leaders have to have. Mm-hmm. And these are things that I know that you're pouring into people, that you're speaking to companies about, that you yourself speak on. So what are some of those like key attributes that, man, if you're going to be a good leader, you got to have these?
Yeah, I share your same passion for the subject of leadership, and I'd love to give you like the exact attributes,
right?
Because it's these three. But one of the things that as I dive more into leadership, because you read the books, I read the books, we listen to the speakers, we listen to the podcasts, I'm learning more today about leadership from some of the very people I would never expected to be learning about leadership. And so what I've learned is, Nathan, take a step back and start to observe more.
Mm-hmm.
And as I start to observe more, some key attributes that come out in great leaders, because I believe personally, we're all leaders. There's people say, oh, I don't consider myself a leader. We are all leaders. We're leading something all the time, starting with ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
So how am I leading myself? When I observe other people, how are they leading themselves? And so when I look at great leaders, I love what you said as you were setting this up. They live in the giver's game. So that would you say value leading leaders? What was the word? It's phrase that used life giving. Yeah. I mean, I think the best leaders that I see as I observe, they are givers. They're not takers. Whether it be like the guy that's the janitor at the school, just watching what he does to keep the school clean for those other kids, and probably never gets a thank you, right? So I think when I look at key attributes, a great leader's got to be willing to give more than he gets. And so there's a formula I like to break down called the H3 formula: heart, humility, and hustle. And heart, really, great leaders, they serve from their heart.
Mm-hmm.
And I think if you look in Scripture, 877 times, I think the number is, the word heart is in Scripture. So I think that's what Jesus wants from us too.
Yeah.
He just wants our heart.
Yeah,
And
totally.
I think when we look at how we can serve mankind, no matter what circle of influence we have, how much are we willing to give? And are we willing to give more than we get?
Yeah.
And too many times people want to get before they're willing to give. If you pay me this, I'll do this.
Yeah.
Versus I'm in it. And I think heart is also about enthusiasm. Enthusiasm for how can I go deeper in the relationships with the people around me, whether it's people on my team, whether it's clients. So heart to me is a key attribute of great leaders. The other H, humility. Humility is coachability. Humility is, if I got to be the smartest guy in the room, I better change rooms.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Humility is really, am I committed to a lifelong learning? What am I reading? What am I observing? What's the people that I'm around? Leadership is a journey. It's not a destination. And then the last H is hustle. I get to interview lots of leaders and talk with lots of leaders. Man, they work hard.
Yeah.
And they understand that God created work for us.
Mm-hmm.
We're meant to work.
Right.
Work is dignity.
Yeah.
And so I think that a lot of times we read, boy, that guy, he's lucky. Look at his life or her life. But if you start pulling apart what happens or has happened in all the many hours, I believe greatness takes place in the shadows.
Yeah.
And so those are three key attributes: heart, humility, and hustle.
Yeah, I think those are so good, Nathan, because a lot of times I think you're right that we can look at other people and say, well, it's easy for them.
Mm-hmm.
We can look at the position they're in, or that maybe don't seem to be working that hard, but yet those things they go with you too.
Yeah.
Like every single one of those things that you mentioned, heart, humility, and hustle, there's no ending to those.
Never.
Right? I mean, that's something that you are constantly just walking in, leading others in, trying to grow within yourself, because that's what's going to continue to move you forward and hopefully move your team forward, because you're modeling those things.
Right.
Yeah.
100%. Well, as you mentioned, team. I think some of the best leaders I've been around, they are so good at not pushing a team, but pulling a team. And that means, in Scripture it talks that, where there is no vision, the people will perish.
Yeah.
Great leaders will pull people towards a vision. Pushing somebody towards something takes willpower. It might work short term, but it's not sustainable. When you can move people towards a vision, and the greatest leaders that we see, they are able to do that. And that's empowering a team, equipping a team, but always keeping their eyes focused. Hey, where are we headed?
I think that that's such a important principle, not just for our teams and in our work, but even in our homes. You think about like our parenting, right? I mean, that's the first thing I thought of is, as you were talking about that, is, how many times have we as dads, maybe tried to push our kids to do better or to do something where maybe they just didn't have the vision or the belief, and I'm just going to blame myself on not doing a good enough job of maybe pulling them into an understanding of why they're doing it, or the purpose behind the work that they're doing, or why we organize our family or work that way. That's a great principle, even just for us as dads.
Oh, I think it's probably more important there.
Yeah.
And I would say that, thank God for my wife, because she's so good at helping raise our children. But there's always two things we always said to our kids. All we care about: love Jesus and work hard.
Yeah.
Love Jesus and work hard. And if we lead our kids that way all the time, everything else will take care of itself. And I think that this is good for us, though, to make, as dads in our homes and as leaders in our homes, we do got to pull them towards that type of vision.
Yeah. Well, because again, that is going to be transformational in how, hopefully they live their lives when they're out of our home. Right now, I mean, your kids are out of their home. I am an empty nester. Okay. As of this year, both my boys are in college, and, we just hope, hopefully we've helped them build a foundation of those two principles that you talked about. That's very much what Laura and I did. And then we just say, okay, guys, now you just got to go do it. Now you just got to go do it. And so that's great. So, talk with me about how you got into this, having this passion for leadership. Was there like people in your life that when you were like little Nathan running around that tried to, help you develop leadership principles, or how did this really come about for you?
Well, I think, who knows? But, as I look through my life, where I still get juice, I like to win. And sometimes it gets ahead of me, and I want to win too bad. But when I look at winning, I want to win in every area of my life. So where I got passionate about it, and again, when we look at the word passion, I always like breaking that word down, because I think there's a lot of misrepresentation of that word. Passion is not some blissful feeling. Passion, the word means to suffer for. So if we look for the passion of Christ,
right.
I mean, to suffer for us. So what am I willing to suffer for? And when I see great leaders, it's work, it's resilience, it's grit, it's ability to have confrontational tolerance. That the minute there is some resistance, do you have the persistence to push through it? So that's where I've just gotten passionate about, because as I study leaders, watch leaders, and looking at my own life, it's easy to quit.
Yeah.
A lot of people quit. And that's where he says that, you know what, is my why big enough? And am I also where I've had anxiety in my own life, and where I get, beat down, is when I think it's all about me. And I let my ego get in my way.
Yeah, which is, and it comes back to humility, and why humility is such a
100%.
Yeah.
So even as I've gone through the years and made those mistakes, like of just chasing numbers or chasing certain things, just win. Okay, why, Nathan?
Yeah.
Why do you want to win? And is it something that God really wants you to do? And so I have to make sure that I'm seeking His will, because it's so easy to just make it about me.
Yeah. That's good, and I think that that motivation is such an important thing to think about. Like, so my youngest son, he's entering college, and he is a pre-med major. We'll see what the Lord does if he stays in that kind of education track. But it was interesting when we were meeting with professors at different universities, and we were touring the campuses, doing all those kinds of things. The question that every professor of biology or chemistry would ask him was like, okay, so why do you want to pursue medicine? And Chase, he was able to answer the question and said, well, when I was 5 and 6 years old, I broke my femur, and it was put together twice by doctors, pediatric orthopedic surgeons, and now I'm a runner, and so that their work really benefited me, and so now I want to go and be able to do that for other kids. And it was interesting because one professor in particular said, if that remains your why, if that remains your motivation, that will keep you in med school. That will, because it's going to be a ton of work. But if it most often, if the motivation is just, well, I want to make a lot of money, they're going to drop out or they're not going to make it. A very small percentage will. So that motivation, that why we do what we do is so crucial. And again, not just in the workforce, but in our marriage, in our relationship with our kids, and how we live our lives in our community. It's all about that why.
I agree. And so the question there is, practically, what is your why? And I think we got to be asking ourselves that every day. And if we can't succinctly state that why, we have to reflect on what that is.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a lot of people that don't know why. Why do I get up every single morning?
Yeah.
Is it just merely get on the hamster wheel of life and start grinding away? Because when the why's big enough, the hows take care of themselves. So I love the stories of like Steve Jobs. Steve Jobs, his why was very simple: to put a dent in the universe. Nothing to do with a computer or a phone with one button.
Yeah.
He wanted to put a dent in the universe. So yeah, his platform was technology, but that was what he wanted to do. And I think he did that. But listen to how succinct that is. That was what rallied him every single day, right? So I think for each of us, what is our vision statement? My vision statement is enhance millions of lives. So that's the lens by which I look through everything that I do. Am I enhancing lives? And if I enhance that one life, what does that do to that person's circle of influence? That's what motivates me to get up every day.
Yeah.
And it also doesn't have to be, I'm staring at a clock, punch in, punch out. Wherever I am, whether I'm at home, whether I'm at work, wherever I'm at, am I living that vision out?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and really, that's helpful for whatever line of work that you're in, because I'm thinking about the listener or the person that is kind of punching that time clock.
Yeah.
And we all have seasons. We all have challenge. We all have different jobs that we've had in our life or whatever. And sometimes it's, yes, look, I'm working because I need to pay this bill or whatever. But that perspective of saying, how can God use me, even while I'm not doing a job that I really love right now, but it's where I need to be. But how can God use me? Who has He surrounded me with right now that I can, speak into, lead, give life to? Because that perspective is something that is not job specific. That's every job. That's every one of our lives at all times. It's about people.
Yeah, don't you think, Tom, that I don't care what we do, whether we're digging ditches, you're the orthopedic surgeon, you're the janitor, just fall in love with what you do. Fall in love with the work and the impact it has. Don't look at it from a punch clock, because we're all punching a clock one way or the other, right? I mean, sure, we all got the same 168 hours a week, right? So how are we investing that time in doing it with a level of excellence? Because I think that's what God wants.
Mm-hmm.
He wants us to give our best, no matter what we're doing. I remember my first job. I was making $3.85, and it was this little gas station called Country Corner. And I would go in. I was 15 years old, and I'd go in at 6 a.m., and there's many times I'd close it down at 10.
Mm-hmm.
And I learned more in that job, and I never even cared about the $3.85. I loved my manager. He taught me more about just a strong work ethic. His name was Roger, and I'll never forget Roger.
Yeah.
He says, Nathan, I don't care if you're mopping the floor, you're making popcorn, you're keeping the cooler stocked, or you're making the ice cream. Do it with excellence. And I was young. I was very impressionable at that time, but that stuck with me. Just give your best, no matter what.
Yeah, and I think that message, we need to come back to that message. I mean, like just in our culture and our world. I mean, in general, right? I mean, I look at. I remember when Laura and I first met, we were working at TGI Fridays, and that was back when there wasn't many restaurants in Sioux Falls, and it was like 2 and 3 and 4 hour waits on a Friday night, that kind of thing. But I remember the training that we had to undergo to be a server. Like, we had to memorize like ingredients of all the different items of food. We had to go and learn, how to approach a table and talk about how we're going to take care of them. They're our guests. And we had to go through very rigorous training to be a server. And it like when you got to be on the floor for the first time and you were given like, we're only going to give you 4 tables because we want you to provide excellence in service. When was the last time that you've gone to a restaurant and said, boy, that was excellence in service? It happens, but I don't think nearly as often as it used to.
I agree. And there, not just a gap, but an opportunity there.
Yeah.
And so I even tell my kids, I go, today's day and age, guys, if you work hard and you do your job with excellence, all the way down to how you text and how you email, use the right punctuation, put a period where it's supposed to be, and read it before you hit send. It doesn't take, my mother-in-law gave me a great book one time. It says it takes very little to be above average. Very little to be above average. And if you think about that, it doesn't take a whole lot. When we look at customer experience, you don't have to be a 5 out of 5. Average is 3. So when we look at the research of that, you got to be a 3.3. 0.3, just to shine. And I think we can look at that principle in all of our lives. How do I just get a little bit better? Get a little bit better every day.
Yeah.
I struggled for a lot of years with this idea of balance. And you hear a lot about it today, life balance. And I don't believe in it. I believe that life is constantly throwing us curveballs. Sometimes our family needs us more. Sometimes our work needs us more. I think it's more of a teeter-totter than anything else. But one of my mentors who came alongside me and really was, impressed in me, says, Nathan, if you want an extraordinary life, the extra in extraordinary has got to come from somewhere. And you have to take the time to really reflect on each area of your life. If I want to be excellent spiritually, I got to put the work in. If I want to have an extraordinary family life, I got to do something about that.
Right.
My physical health, my mental health, my social, my friendships, who's speaking into my life and whose life am I speaking into? My finances, my relationship with money. I had to learn about money and what money really was, and what, money's not a bad thing, but how do I use it? And so I think if we want extraordinary lives, we've got to take the reflection in all 7 of those areas. I wrote a book called Digit.
Yeah.
And so one of my things that I teach the people that work with us is that every 90 days, rate yourself out of 10 in the 7 areas of life. So like my number right now, this quarter for Q2 right now is 59. Last quarter of Q1 was 56. I'll ebb and flow all over the place because you know what? Last year, one of my kids had a tough time, right? So that requires more energy, right? And I think that's all happening. Times in my marriage that needed more focus.
Yeah.
Right. So I think that's, even when you're looking at leadership, how do you lead yourself?
Yeah.
It starts there, because a battery cannot give off what it does not have. And
That's good.
we're always leading ourselves.
Yeah. No, that's good. That's really good. Okay, so there's a couple things that that I want to make sure that we hit on, and I love that you broke down the word passion, by the way, because there's several passions that you have, and you're just a passionate dude, right? I mean, I get it, and I love that. But one of the things that I know is one of your passions is helping others, helping people achieve a life of affluence.
Mm-hmm.
So first of all, what does that mean? Okay. And then secondly, how do we achieve that?
Great. Well, affluence. So affluence is a word, when you first hear the word, people's first mind, they go right to money. Affluence, in my opinion, has very little to do with money. Yes, money is a part of it, but here's the definition. Affluence is a flowing towards an abundant supply of options to live the life you desire. So let me break that down.
Yeah, I was going to say,
affluence is flowing towards abundant supply of options to live the life you desire. So flowing towards. So this gets to the question, well, how do I do it? Well, I better be doing the things to flow towards, right? So let's take money, for instance. I better, if I'm going to flow towards an abundant supply of it, I better start managing and stewarding it correctly. Because if I do, then it's going to give me options.
Okay.
Right? My health. How am I flowing towards how I'm taking care of myself, what I'm putting in my mouth, how I'm exercising, what am I thinking, in order to have an abundant supply of options to do the things I want to do.
Right.
So really, affluence is, if we break affluence down, yes, it's about money. Yes, your investments, your 401k, your IRA, all of those things, but it's also your reputation. What are you doing about your reputation? Mm-hmm. Maybe you got to say sorry about some stuff. Maybe you need to ask for some forgiveness about some things. It's about our experiences that we get to live in life. It's about our family name. It's about our kids' education. All of those things make up our own individual affluent lifestyle. Your affluent lifestyle and your affluent journey is different than mine. We all have a different journey that we would define as affluence. So to live an affluent lifestyle, first of all, reflect, what do you want? And more importantly, God, what do you want through me to happen?
Yeah.
And then now start to create the routine and make the routine your reward, because that's the flowing towards the abundant supply of options. And again, I think that I heard this is tenacity will get you there. Consistency will keep you there. But gratefulness will take what's already there and create more abundance.
Yeah.
And so that to me is what affluence is.
Yeah. So the gratitude piece is interesting though, because I think there's a couple of things that I don't think we do near as much as we should. Mm-hmm. And one is reflect. You've used that word several times in our conversation already, that the reflection, the thinking, the processing. We move on so fast. We quickly we don't think about where we've been, or we don't think about why we're experience what we are or whatever. We just quickly, especially if it's painful, we're like, man, I just want to get out,
Yep.
But the reflection is so key for us to understand, to be educated, and so that we can move forward and learn from where we've been. And then secondly, that word that you just mentioned, and that's being thankful. Mm-hmm. And gratitude, and being thankful even during the difficult seasons, Philippians chapter 4, do not be anxious about anything, but in all things through prayer and supplication with thanksgiving, mm-hmm. present your request to God. Mm-hmm. And the God of all peace will guard your heart and mind in Christ Jesus. So the reflection and the gratitude, I think, is so key.
I agree. So here's most powerful two emotions: gratitude and forgiveness. And so I believe for me, I wish I would have started doing this earlier in my life, but starting every day right there. Get in the Word, start with prayer and write down what you're grateful for. Tom, I'm amazed when I ask people, so what are you grateful for? And it takes them a while.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking, if you think about what we have, everything we have to be grateful for.
Yeah.
Yes, our family, our faith, the typical answers we all give, but how about nature, the air we breathe, the food, the water, the birds of the air? I mean, there's so many things all around us
That we take for granted.
That we take for granted.
We just take for granted. Yeah.
We do.
Yeah.
We do. So, and I think we have to change the way we think. And the only way that we do that is by reflecting. So for me in my routine, I have to take that time because it's too easy to wake up, get on that hamster wheel of life again, start checking emails, start making phone calls, taking more time just to think.
Mm-hmm.
And, this is a sad statistic, but the average person watches 5 hours of TV per day. We're not thinking. We're borrowing our mind.
We're consuming.
We're consuming.
Yeah.
So the people say I don't have enough time. We have the time.
Yeah.
You got to be intentional with that time.
Yeah. We just got to allocate it properly. And and it's designed, the scrolling feature on our phone, it's designed to keep you on it.
Oh.
Netflix, it starts another episode. Like, you don't even watch the credits. Those poor people that make the shows, they don't even get any credit anymore. Right now, it's like a 9-second countdown to the next episode. And then when you finish that series, it's like, hey, here's 82 more series that because you watch this, you would maybe like this.
Yeah. I'll watch one more. They got it. They call it programming for a reason.
Yeah, because you have been programmed for sure. Okay, so one other thing that I know that I wanted to visit on is mentorship, because I know that's something that you're very passionate about, having mentors, being mentored. That's been something that I feel like I've really been blessed with throughout my life, is to have people that have invested in me, have been great mentors and role models. But specifically, the term is values-based mentorship that you really employ, that you talk about. What does that mean? And what does values-based mentorship look like in our life?
Yeah, great question. So here's what I believe is that our thoughts dictate our feelings. Our feelings dictate our behaviors. Our behaviors dictate our actions, and our actions create results. So if we look at value-based mentorship, what are you thinking about? Mm-hmm. What are the thoughts? How's that the thoughts coming out of your head? I don't know about you, but there's a lot of bad thoughts in my head. And I have to change how I wire those things. I have to continue to work at that. So what are the key values that I have to hold dear? So I said to you earlier, heart, humility, and hustle. Mm-hmm. Those are my 3 values that I want to lead from, starting with myself and then those other people around me. Then when you look at values-based mentorship, who are other people that share the same types of values? Who does it better than I do? And who are those people around me that are willing to speak into my life? Don't tell me what I need to hear, right? Or not what I want to hear, but what I need to hear. Mm-hmm. And finding those kinds of people. And I've been very fortunate to find some wonderful people. Sometimes they tell me too much. But they've been so good for me because they're protecting my blind side. And they're also, I can manipulate and tell myself all kinds of stories.
Sure.
And so having people in your life like that, and they're around, just got to ask for it, and you got to lean into them.
So where does someone start for that, Nathan? Because I think that's sometimes a struggle, especially for guys, I think, to develop depth of, number one, just developing friendships and depth of relationships for guys sometimes is difficult, right? Because, we don't necessarily, we don't want to take the mask off, or we don't feel like we measure up, or that we'll say something dumb, or whatever. But sometimes it's just really difficult for guys to find friendships, find a mentor. How does someone start that search?
Well, I think what you just said right there is, first of all, be willing and vulnerable enough to say, I need help. As men, we don't say that we need help. For me, I was that guy that says, buck up, buttercup. Yeah, things are going to be okay. Yeah. But you know what? Until I started getting vulnerable and transparent, true transformations weren't taking place like they could have in my life.
Mm.
So for me is finding those guys and being able to have a conversation like you and I are having right now. I need help. Can you help me?
Mm-hmm.
If we pay attention, I mean, in our churches, in our small groups, we got to go lean into those relationships. Because unfortunately, where are we getting most of our advice as men? During happy hour, right? We're going into places like, that's why bars are so popular, because you feel loved. So where can you feel loved and you can be open and transparent, but people are going to give you life-feeding advice to help you continuously develop as a human being? Because I would say this, we're not human doings.
Uh-huh.
We're human beings.
Right.
So for me, what's important to me, I see a therapist once a month.
Mm.
Some people say, well, why is something wrong with you? Like, well, yeah, there's a lot wrong. There's a lot wrong with me. But you know what? I don't even know what I'm going to go talk to him about a lot of times. But he's good for me. He challenges me, and I can talk to him about different areas that I'm struggling with. Then I got a great men's group. And that men's group is, it's not really a make each other feel great about everything. I mean, it's a real group that we really lean into each other.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, and anybody that's listened to this podcast before and has come to the summit has heard me talk endlessly about the whole idea of Band of Brothers and having those men in our lives that know us at a deep level, that we're not, that we're not trying to just make each other feel good, but we're really challenging each other to live in the light, to invest in ourselves, to invest in our marriages, be present fathers, all those kinds of things, stewarding our time, talent, treasure, all that kind of stuff. Mm-hmm. And so I know that's something that's been very valuable for your life as well. And so I just say for those guys that are maybe out there listening right now and you just feel like that's something that you're lacking. I love what you said, Nathan. Sometimes you just have to be willing to ask. And it's just saying, hey, you know what? Would you be willing to just meet with me and just talk with me about some stuff?
And don't you agree, Tom? Most guys will say yes.
Right.
They're just waiting for somebody to ask.
Yeah.
I mean, I was so scared of talking to certain people to ask for help, and it's like, well, absolutely. People want to help. Mm-hmm. I mean, I know you love helping. I mean, whether it be young men or people, whatever they're walking through, just ask for help.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay, so you talked a little bit about your businesses, and we've got just a little bit more time here. So I'm interested in. I mean, obviously, you said that you really don't believe in the whole balance thing, but you've got all these businesses. You've started businesses, and I just am wondering for the entrepreneur out there, I'd love for you to just talk about maybe a couple of keys, and it may be something that we've already talked about, and that's okay. But a couple of the keys to being a successful entrepreneur, because I think that, there's a lot of people that really want to start a business. They really would love they love the idea of starting a business. But what have you experienced that has been important for you that could maybe be helpful to others of what does it really take to be a successful entrepreneur?
Well, I'm still trying to figure it out. Let's break the word entrepreneur down for a minute.
Okay.
Because it's a pretty popular word right now.
Right.
I want to be an entrepreneur.
Right.
Okay. Well, what is that?
Yeah, especially in Sioux Falls. I mean, we have Startup Sioux Falls. There's a big culture of that here. That's why I wanted to talk to you about it.
Yeah, and it oftentimes leads back to money. Too many times I hear that's the circles I hear about. Okay. That's why I want to. Here's the thing. Entrepreneurship has nothing to do with money. Entrepreneurs, all they want to do is solve a problem. An entrepreneur sees a problem and says, we're going to solve that problem.
Which is what you did with the billing.
100%. Yeah, 100%. So as an entrepreneur, what problem are you trying to solve? And if you have that as your focus, that is, I think, the first step in becoming a successful entrepreneur. Mm-hmm. Then understand, you better be willing to put the time in. Mm-hmm. Well, a good friend of mine, both of us know him, Eric McDonald, says to me one time, as he's growing his business, Nathan, entrepreneurship is often like flying a plane and trying to build the engine while you're flying. That's entrepreneurship.
Yeah.
In this idea that, oh man, entrepreneurs they make their own schedules, they got their own time. Here's the deal. It's a lot of times every single day, 7 days a week. Mm-hmm. And you've got to be willing to put that hustle time in and input, because you don't know all the things in the beginning. So I think to be successful is that understand what problem you're trying to solve. And do you have the passion, the willing to suffer to solve that problem? And whatever it takes, you're going to do it. Because most businesses fail within the first 5 years. I think it's like 85% go away within the first. It's high. It's high. It's not easy.
Yeah.
And so then I would say again, humility. Who's been there? Who's done that? Get some coaching and mentorship. Business is so much fun, but it takes work and it takes you thinking about it differently.
That's a really good word. I remember when, so RESGEN's been around for 13 years now, about 13 and a half. And I remember when I first was really thinking that was how the Lord was leading, and that God wanted us to start something. I remember going and having a conversation where I called this guy that I'd met, that was a speaker, and he lives 8 hours away. And I said, his name is Bob. He was an episode of the podcast, Bob Lenz, great guy. And I just remember calling him and saying, hey, can I drive to Wisconsin and just watch you? Can I just watch you interact with your staff? Can I watch you speak at a school? Can I watch you do what you do? It's like, you want to drive 8 hours just to watch me? I'm like, yeah, sounds kind of creepy. But to me, that was valuable to go and to learn and to just consume, and just watch and then digest all these things and then break it down and say, okay, what does this really take? Help me understand. It's not going to be exactly the same, but help me understand maybe some things that I don't currently see that will help me kind of maybe start a little bit more successfully so that I can last beyond 5 years. And that was probably one of the most valuable things that I did in the infancy of RESGEN.
I think it's huge. And look, you did observe. When we started this conversation, we're talking about leadership. Observation of what other great leaders have done or are doing is huge. By you making the investment of time that also required you to quiet your ego and say, I don't know. And by making that commitment to suffer 8 hours, 8 hours both ways.
Yeah.
16 hours. And then go see that. That's a big deal. And I think there's a lot of smart people in the world. And I don't need to recreate the wheel.
Yeah.
I just got to get really good at asking questions and observing.
And like you said, most people will say yes.
They will.
And I mean, and they're not going to be fearful of you overtaking their business or whatever. They're willing to help.
Totally.
Yeah. Something that I love that you've done throughout our conversation, Nathan, is continually bring your faith into it and bring the Lord into our conversation, which I love because I know that that's your heart. And so I am interested in just knowing, as you think about your personal faith, when in your life did you say, it's really my faith, and it just where your faith came alive and you really began to integrate it into every aspect of your life and not just compartmentalizing it to, like a Sunday morning?
There's been a number of times, I think flashpoints in my life where my faith has become that much more important, or maybe a better understanding, like you said, maybe get my faith. Because I was very fortunate, born and raised in a Christian home. I got Christian education. I went to church. So faith has always been a part of my life. But, there was times throughout my journey, whether it be in college, where I wasn't really living that out very well. Times in my marriage, I haven't lived it out very well. Times in my raising my kids, even what comes out of my mouth from time to time doesn't really, he's a Christian. So I think there's been a number of times. One time that I was doing some work on myself in a place in Arizona, and I kept bringing my faith up. This therapist looked at me and goes, why do you feel like you got to keep telling me about that? And it was that moment I was like going, you know what? Why don't I live more that way than just always just speak it? And so that was a flashpoint for me there. Also, just there was times in my life where I would treat God like a dog. Like, sit, God. Oh, no, now I need you, God. come here, God, come here, God, come here, God, right? So I think there's times that, especially in my earlier career, I was doing too much of that and leading from ego. So right now, for me, if I don't stay connected to the vine, if I'm not in the Word, if I'm not praying, if I'm not having those conversations with my wife, it's so easy to get beat down by what's around me.
Yeah.
So I have to begin every day in the Word, and I can feel it. I can tell if I go a day and don't do it, it affects me.
Yeah.
It affects me.
Yeah, that's good. Well, you mentioned the vine, and that's John 15 has got to be one of my all-time favorite sections of Scripture. But there's something that's so challenging in there where it just says, "Apart from me, you can do nothing."
Yeah.
And do we really believe that?
Mm-hmm.
Do we really believe that when we are disconnected with the vine, that we can do nothing?
Mm-hmm.
If we truly internalize that,
Yeah.
that changes our perspective on how we live our life.
Yeah.
And that we have to ensure that what's coming out of our mouth is matching up with our lifestyle. I love what you just said there, because at the end of the day, we can talk a big game, right? And we can talk a good game, but we need to live it. We need to live it out.
Yep.
And so that's
and
how we treat people is one of the biggest ways that you can tell. So how has your faith really influenced how you lead people and care for them?
Well, I think, sometimes I get disappointed in myself, though, is when I don't lead well.
Sure.
As a Christian man. And I do let my mouth get ahead of me. So I think the one thing that I read my Bible different today than I've ever read it. In the stories, God was tells us everything we need to know Job's story, Solomon's story, David's story, Paul's story. They're just like you and me with all kinds of struggles. And I love apart from him, we can do nothing. And so I think that I have to say sorry a lot, Tom. I'm getting better at becoming more self-aware and to self-regulate. And I think that's one of the misnomers with Christians, though. And this is where I get a little frustrated with my Christian brothers and sisters a little bit. We get pretty judgmental. We can't do it without him. We are a muddy mess. And so I just got to begin every day in prayer and just thank God and ask for forgiveness. And I got to do better each day, every day. And, I want to shoot for excellence, give myself some grace because I know God's given it to me, right? And I'll still live a good life.
Yeah. Yeah. One of the most important phrases that we can begin each day is, God, I need you today.
Oh, big time.
I need you today.
Yeah. So I'm going to say something stupid.
I'm going to say something stupid. Do something stupid. God, I need you today. Okay. So we're going to kind of land this plane here together. And this has been so good, Nathan. Thanks for taking some time and having this conversation. I do want to ask, because you talked about, routine, beginning your day with the Lord, all that. You're so busy. You get your hands on a lot of things. I do want to know, how do you refuel yourself? How do you rest? Because I think that's one of the things that guys sometimes we struggle with too, is just resting. I know, I'm a doer. I constantly want to be, productive and all that. So how do you rest? How do you make sure that you're filling yourself back up so that you have something to pour out?
Yeah. Well, rest for me starts with my routine. Because if I don't have a routine, I end up a mess, and I can redline in a hurry. So I always start my day in the Word, in gratitude. I have what I've created called my flow planner, which is about affluence and a flowing toward. So I always start my day there. I have to make sure that I take care of my body from a workout perspective, because if I don't do that, I don't get good rest. And then my favorite thing to do is to sit in the mornings and sit at night in my backyard, listen to the birds, and just think. I read a lot, I listen a lot, but that time of just in the morning and at night, and I try to do it every single day. And that's where I get recharged. And so that's the best way that I find. I used to always think of vacation, how do I create a vacation every day for my brain. And just pay attention to nature, slow down enough in the beginning of my day and at the end of my day. And so that's what we try to do.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And then one thing, because we always want to make sure that, especially if we're married, that we find ways to invest in our marriages.
Mm-hmm.
So what's one way that you are investing in your marriage these days?
I would say that when I just described our evening time, my wife and I will spend a lot of time together there.
Yeah.
We're enjoying now that we're empty nesters. We're spending a lot more time traveling.
Oh, yeah.
So for a lot of years, we didn't travel a whole lot. So we're having a lot of fun doing that. Try to stay in the Word together. Sometimes we're better at it than others times. We're trying to do devotionals together, trying to get in a routine to pray together.
Yeah.
Sometimes we fall off on that, but those are the areas I'm trying to invest in.
That's good. That's really good, Nathan. Thanks for sharing that. I always love to learn from other guys what they're doing, because then I take notes and say, these are the things that I need.
Well, and then if she was sitting here, she'd say, I'm elbowing him to say, we need to do devotions together. I go, you're right.
All right, brother. Well, hey, so we end each of our conversations here with something we just call the final word. It's just 30 to 60 seconds of just whatever the Lord lays on your heart, just a final thought of like encouragement, challenge. Could be something that you want to revisit that you've already talked about, or something brand new that the Lord gives you. Just a final word for listeners and viewers. So you got something for us?
Yeah, I'll button it up with a little bow here. I think everything that we talked about today, if I could encourage you as a listener what to do with it, is go figure out your why. So the most important days in your life are the day you're born and the day that you figure out why you were born. And you can't do that yourself. You got to rely, God, what do you want to do through me? And once you figure that why out, all the house take care of themselves. So figure out your why. What is why are you on this earth? And God put every single one of us on this earth for a reason. God doesn't make junk. Every single one of us has different skills, different abilities, different talents. Those are His gift to us. Now, what's our gift back to Him? So that would be my last word.
Yeah, when we come with that kind of mindset, you think about just simple steps that we can all take as we are continuing trying to be men who are growing in all areas of our life. Like you said, I mean, the affluence in all areas of our life. The first step that we take and our goal of doing that is to say, God, how do you want to, you said, go through me today, or use me today.
Yeah,
I mean, how do you use me today? That first step, and then all of a sudden it opens us up to some powerful things throughout the day. So Nathan, thank you for your friendship. Thanks for being here. Thanks for kicking off season 4.
All right.
In an amazing way. And we'll talk soon.
Thanks, man.
Thanks for tuning into the conversation I had with Nathan Unruh. If you enjoyed our conversation and found it helpful, I encourage you to share with others that may enjoy it as well. If you'd like to connect more with Dr. Unruh, you can find him at drnathanunruh.com. All right, thanks again for joining me today, everybody. We'll see you next time for another episode of the RESGEN Giving Life Podcast. Until then, continue being men whose life in Christ gives life to others. We'll see you soon.